Okay, guys, so welcome everyone. And I'm really happy to be here with all of you. This webinar has been organized by the Weekly Fasting Group, which is a big online community of people from virtually every place on the globe. And the common denominator of this group is fasting once a week. So we fast for 24 hours at least once a week, every week, week after week, between Friday and Saturday. 24 hours. That's the common denominator. Other than that, there is no agenda here. We have people from different dietary backgrounds, different spiritual backgrounds, and if you are watching this video later on and those ideas appeal to you, you want to cultivate this habit of fasting, then you are welcome to send me a WhatsApp message. You will find my contact details below this video. My name is Arik. I'm the moderator of this group, and just send me your name with your by WhatsApp, and I will happily add you there. So, and also every week we prepare, or almost every week, we prepare webinars with interesting speakers in the fields of nutrition, spirituality, fasting, cleansing, alternative lifestyles, just to share our wisdom and to learn. Yeah, and today, guys, we have Lauritz from the channel, from the YouTube channel called Conscious Development. Very deep YouTube channel. Lots of very deep, very profound videos there. Lots of very useful information. And today we will be covering many interesting subjects related to nutrition, spirituality, overcoming illnesses with nutritional means, with spiritual means, many other subjects. But basically we'll be just spontaneous and we'll just have a nice conversation. And we will start, guys, with a short guided meditation led by Lauritz. So Lauritz, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Arik, first of all, for the introduction. Happy to be here and be interviewed by you. So yeah, let us start with a short guided meditation. And this is a type of kind of non-dual pure awareness type of meditation. So you can close your eyes and just pay attention for a few slightly deeper breaths than normal and become aware of the air moving in and out of your body. So now for this meditation, you can imagine to be sitting like a huge mountain under a wide open blue sky. And just imagine how that would feel like to have an awareness like the open wide blue sky, clear and crisp. Yet you are firmly positioned here underneath that sky as the solid mountain. And so your awareness is present and continuous, and you just acknowledge that you are aware. And while your day may have been filled with many different activities, thoughts, sensations, this meditation, you turn around and really look into the other direction, away from activity to just pure existence. And within your mind, just rest in that place where there is seemingly nothing going on, just pure being. And with every out breath, you relax a little bit deeper into that nothingness. Whenever thoughts come up and may distract you and catch your attention, just gently notice them, let them be and let them go, and come back to that pure being. In fact, you just let go of anything that your mind attaches to. If you find you are involved in anything, just notice that and drop the involvement. Just stay simply aware. Okay, and with a few more conscious breaths, you can open your eyes again and be aware of your surroundings and try to remain in that relaxed, open, aware state.
Okay, thank you so much, Lauritz. Thank you,
Okay, yeah,
guys.
great. Hope you
Okay,
enjoyed it.
yes.
Usually these kinds of meditations where you're meditating without a specific object need a little bit of practice and becoming familiar with to really recognize what that means to remain not involved with anything, to let go of anything that comes into your mind and stay in that kind of empty spot. So maybe 5 minutes may be a little bit short, but if anyone wants to practice that, it lends itself perfectly for longer sessions as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, guys, so now we are going to delve into the webinar itself. So now it's, first of all, I wanted to ask you, what happened in your life in the past that made you think differently than most people think? Was it a specific event, or you kind of felt it right from your childhood that made you search, either for something deeper, for some deeper spiritual meaning, or experiment with lifestyle choices, and not just live your life, in this automatic matrix or automatic machine?
I think, unfortunately, as it is for many people who are looking for different things, it comes out of suffering. So suffering is for many people kind of a facilitator to look to different approaches to life, and it was also for me. And I think, yeah, the earliest thing that I can think of that really started me to recognize, okay, I can't live the life that people around me live, or I can't have the same approach, is when I was 15 or maybe 14 to 16 years old, I had like a longer period of a lot of digestive issues with severe implications for how I can live my life. So I had diarrhea, so I couldn't go out with friends as regularly and couldn't just enjoy being so autonomous outside of home. I always had to check, like, okay, something is off. I'm really kind of getting less and less healthy and become more and more sick. And so yeah, with 16 years old, it became clear that I had Crohn's disease, or colitis. When they diagnosed it at first, they weren't quite sure what it was of the two, but I think it's more like Crohn's, as they found out later. So yeah, and that kind of over the years developed into an obsession with health, because at first, the doctors tell you, there's nothing really you can do with your diet, it's unrelated, so you just take these medications. And as a teenager, you think, oh yeah, okay, if they say it and you don't really know what it is, that this terminology, Crohn's disease, then you follow that. And but yeah, the medication didn't work so well. So it was like 17 or 18 years, I started like looking for other ways to deal with those health issues.
Now, I'm sorry, Lauritz. So for people who don't know, including myself, I don't know much about that. Could you describe more Crohn disease, what exactly it is, if people know the source of it, or like what are the symptoms, etc., just to widen our picture about it?
Yeah. So it is a chronic inflammatory bowel disease. So it's basically with Crohn's disease, it can get inflamed from the whole digestive tract, from the mouth to the rear end of the digestive tract. So everything in between can get inflamed. And you basically, when they say it's chronic, because once you kind of develop it, it can always reoccur. It's basically not, as of yet, not really, it cannot be healed. And so, yeah, you rely on drugs that suppress the inflammation. There are various types, various kinds of drugs that do that. And the symptoms range from severe or mild pain to severe pain. And oftentimes it's also comes with diarrhea, malnutrition, losing a lot of weight. So yeah, that's basically what it is.
So, and then they put you on drugs. Yeah. So what kind of drugs did you get at that point?
At first it was steroidal anti-inflammatory, so cortisol, and then, or some kind of cortisol, and it's called prednisolone, that is mostly active locally in the digestive tract. But it also had, for me, severe side effects of weight gain, being very puffy all around, very irritated. So it didn't really feel well to take those drugs, and also they have long-term side effects, which aren't great. So yeah, and then I also later took mesalazine. That's the German pronunciation. I don't know the English term.
Okay.
And azathioprine, which is also an immune suppressive drug, but I didn't take that for very long. So I really quickly after a few months, decided to stop taking that, because the side effects were supposed to be too dramatic that I couldn't accept them. And at that point, I already started researching alternative ways of eating and managing these conditions. And so I've felt quite confident that I would be able to do that without drugs.
But according to official medical establishment, like this, once you have Crohn's disease, you have to take drugs all of your life, I guess, right?
Yeah, intermittently at least. So sometimes you have longer periods and that varies from person to person. You have periods of where you don't have any symptoms, where it's kind of in remission, and then maybe sometimes you don't have medication. Some people have to take them continuously, so it varies. But yeah, basically, at least 15 years ago, when I got diagnosed, the doctor said, yeah, it has nothing to do with diet. I think even the established medical opinion is changing on that. So right now they know of certain triggers in food that really you should avoid if you have this condition. So I haven't spoken to a doctor in a long while regarding this or asked him about it. So I'm not sure what's the actual up-to-date state on that.
Okay. And would you in your case, would you connect it with something that you had eaten prior to that as a child, or not necessarily?
Yeah, I would actually connect it to many things that were in my diet. It's not just one thing. I think it's a combination of milk for me, which I'm quite allergic to. Animal products that are like prepared in ways with a lot of additives. So things like salami and cured things like bacon, and also fried things that were not like, I didn't eat them like all the time, but yeah, my parents were like kind of eating standard German food kind of, and we had that from time to time, and also a lot of processed foods, which is sometimes it depends. So not all, I wouldn't put all processed foods in the same category, but there are certain additives in some processed food that that this condition is really sensitive, or people with this condition are sensitive to, which are mainly emulsifiers, kind of certain processed starches like maltodextrin, and also food preservatives are really not good because they change the intestinal bacteria, the composition of those, and that can have detrimental effects. So yeah, it was a long while to really learn about all these ingredients and really get rid of all of them in my diet. So yeah, it wasn't just a short process. It was a long while to learn about all of these things.
Interesting. So then you were at that time when you started researching different other alternative solutions, you were how old? Something like 17?
17, 18, yeah, around that.
Yeah, so you went to, and what was your main source of information about alternative treatment of Crohn's disease?
Yeah, the world of the internet, more specifically, books or blogs of vegan people that promote vegan diets. I started out with like a raw vegan fruit-based diet that I had really good results on for a while. Then also I started reading a lot of studies, nutritional studies on PubMed. And yeah, I don't know, just consumed a lot of information that were available on the internet, read a lot of books, and yeah, YouTube as well, YouTube channels of people dealing with the same issues, talking about their results with different things. So everything I could find.
Lauritz, and then when did you start with spiritual practices? Is it more or less the same time, or was it a little bit later?
Yeah, it was pretty much 2 years after that, when I was 20 years old. I started studying mechanical engineering, and I noticed that I had severe issues with concentration as well. Like, even though the topic interested me, I couldn't study for the time that it was necessary to pass the tests, and I noticed that quite quickly. So I searched on the internet for ways to improve concentration, and yeah, quickly found meditation. And yeah, I thought, yeah, I have heard about meditation prior, not really, I haven't really done it before. So I just started it as a concentration improvement practice, not really spiritually with a spiritual intent. But I quickly noticed that, oh, this is really, I really enjoy that. I really see there's more to that, and extended my practice time, started also reading specifically about meditation techniques, and so gradually got deeper into spiritual practices like meditation.
Okay, yeah, so we'll talk more about that later, but now let's get back to your alternative Crohn disease treatment. So okay, so you tried raw vegan, okay, and then did it work well for you in terms of the inflammation of the GI tract?
Yeah, it almost worked immediately to reduce the symptoms. I consumed mostly like smoothies, where like blended fruits and vegetables, which were really easy to digest, and that worked really well. But not for very long. I had other issues coming up and felt like this wasn't a good long-term solution. And I think shortly after, I also found intermittent fasting, which I introduced, which was also another thing that I really found had benefits to my digestion, just to let it rest for parts of the day or some days a week. And I tried everything from 16/8 to alternate day fasting, 1 meal a day, fasting
but
2 or 3 days a week. And so, yeah, we can get into that as well.
yeah, but I'm sorry. I would like to ask you a few questions about intermittent fasting. But before that, you said that raw vegan finally kind of stopped working for you or wasn't working optimally. Now, what other issues came there that you mentioned on raw vegan diet that you hadn't expected?
Yeah, I was also going to the gym, started that basically also when I was 16. And I noticed after a while that I really had a lack of energy from that diet. So I couldn't, and yeah, if you read these books and listen to these people, they say, oh, it's not a problem, you get enough protein from fruits and vegetables alone. But really, I found like the 30, maximum 40 grams of protein that I got per day weren't enough for strength training to make improvements. And I actually got weaker. And I also, yeah, didn't felt as mentally clear anymore. I think I found for my type, I can't handle that much sugar well without also a good portion of protein and fats that slow down digestion and regulate or slow down the rise in blood sugar. So I started incorporating plant-based protein powders, for example, and some more nuts or avocados into my diet, and that really kind of fixed it for a while quite well.
So your next step after raw vegan was kind of still high raw, but along with protein powders and some more nuts, more vegetable fats, right?
Yeah, but also more cooked vegetables. Like I had only raw for the first meal of my day at lunch, and then at dinner I ate more cooked foods, like also potatoes. For quite a while I couldn't handle beans and lentils well. I think my stomach or the intestines were still too sensitive for those, but now I can eat them also perfectly fine. But back then I couldn't eat them, so I had to go with the protein powders.
And at that stage, you also started implementing intermittent fasting?
Yes, right. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your journey of intermittent fasting. What kind of modalities have you explored and what did you find out?
For that, it's probably interesting to know that my main purpose with intermittent fasting wasn't weight loss, but it was a management of inflammation. And so while I had these Crohn's flare-ups, I could also quite feel the inflammation throughout my body. So I had painful hands, joints. They were also kind of, as a side effect, getting inflamed. And so I could kind of feel very quickly which kinds of effects the different fasting regimes had on my inflammation in the body, because of the joint pain that reduced quite quickly, sometimes fluctuating from day to day, depending on how much or how little or how long I fasted. And so I started with the 16/8, like eating 2 meals per day. That was quite well, but I found much better to eat only one meal a day. Also, I did that for about a year, but during that process, I lost weight because I was still eating kind of very healthy, like in terms of not very calorie dense foods, except for some nuts. And yeah, my meals were getting too big and I couldn't get in enough calories that way. And eventually I decided, okay, I'm really, really thin. Yeah, this, and also when you get to a certain point in body fat wise or leanness, I have found my hunger was constant. So not even the one meal was really satisfying me. It was the feeling of, okay, the stomach is completely full. I can't eat anymore, but the body is still like wanting something. It's not enough. And so I had to stop that and went back to fasting kind of 1 or 2 days for 24 hours per week, and was able to gain a little bit weight that way, eating sometimes 2 times per day, sometimes 3 times per day the other days. And yeah, since then I have kind of a very flexible fasting schedule, I would say. Sometimes I eat just 1 meal a day, sometimes I eat 2 meals a day, sometimes I eat 3 meals a day. But generally I try to go by what my body tells me. So I go by, am I hungry yet? If I'm not really hungry and I just feel some kind of longing for food or wanting, then I try not to eat. I try to see like, okay, what is that, the underlying issue coming from? Is it maybe boredom or something else that actually wants to be satisfied here? And so, yeah, with this fasting, I learned a lot. And basically the end result is that I have a pretty good feeling of how much food I need, and just be able to eat a little bit less, probably be a little bit calorically restricted. And so, yeah, that works well.
And did it work? And how did intermittent fasting work for your Crohn disease? Did it manage the symptoms completely, or still you had some problems at that stage of intermittent fasting?
Yeah, it was kind of also a journey. There were periods where it was quite well managed, and then there were other periods where sometimes I was also not yet 100% sure of what I could eat and what I couldn't. And so sometimes maybe I ate out at a restaurant where I didn't know what was in the food. And so I had a few days of some issues again, but then they healed up again. But the fasting was pretty much managing it quite well during the period where I was not eating too much at the 1 meal a day, where I was in the phase of still losing weight over several months or the whole year. But when I tried to actually make that work while gaining weight, that didn't work so well. So my digestive system couldn't handle that much food in 1 meal.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, Lauritz. So usually those webinars, in those webinars, after each 20-25 minutes, we kind of open the microphones and I ask people if they have any questions at that point. Then they usually ask questions, and after that we will continue. So that's exactly what we're going to do now, guys. If you have any questions about what have been said so far, please free to ask, and then we will move on. We still have lots of fascinating subjects to cover. I'm so happy to have you here, Lauritz.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, Rutal, you want to ask?
Yes. Hi, good evening.
Hi.
So I was interested to know, after experimenting, what is the ideal? I'm also experimenting, we all are, to find the ideal way of eating. Like, yes, you're right. Sometimes when, sometimes when you eat like light and fruit and raw, it's hard to do the intermittent fasting because you're hungry after every few hours. And if you have a meal with a bit of cooked vegetables and more avocados and the tahini and heavy stuff, then it's easier to have, one meal and then to not to eat from a certain hour. So I was wondering, and you're very sensitive, right? Your body reacts to everything. So you, what is your conclusion? What is the ideal way of eating from your experience?
Yeah, I think I found many for myself, actually. I found that much later I tried eating a very low carb diet while doing intermittent fasting, or 1 meal a day on some days. And that worked quite well because when you eat kind of ketogenic, the body is already in the state of burning fat, and then going into fasting, it doesn't feel like such a shift in the fuel the body uses. So there is not really quite that large hunger signal that you get when you eat like only fruits. And when you then go into fasting, it's like, oh my God, the stomach is really sending you the signal of hunger. And so I think eating a low carb diet where you manage your omega-6 intake, like with some special types of nuts and seeds that have not that many omega-6 fats, and a lot of vegetables, and intermittent fasting, that worked great for me for a while. But more so out of convenience, I shifted back into eating more mixed diet of more carbohydrates and fats and proteins. Is just out of convenience because it's easier to eat with others together, cook for several people, because it's more what people eat. So I eat beans, vegetables, whole grains, lots of fruit, lots of nuts. So it's a very kind of plant-based mixed diet that works quite well for me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Ravi, did you want to ask anything?
Yes, thanks, Arik. Hey, Lauritz. You said you tried smoothies with vegetables and fruits. That is something I do it almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is your suggestion? But I don't mind. I don't have any negative effects on those kind of smoothies.
Mm-hmm.
So I intend to continue. I put spinach and the cilantros and some greens and fruits like blueberries, orange, apples, bananas. I try different combinations every single day. I'm okay with that. At least 2-3 hours, it makes me pull along. And then again, I have one more round of that with different set of greens and different fruits. So what is your suggestion on it? Is it okay to continue like that, or you want me to separate greens separately and fruits separately? What was your experience when you were doing those kind of smoothies?
Yeah. Actually, in fact, I'm still doing that. I add today. I usually add some nuts, some flaxseed, different kinds of sources of fat, but also some sources of protein to the green smoothies. So for example, I have defatted nut flours, like defatted sunflowers powder, defatted pumpkin seed flour. So these are all these kinds of different things that are left over from oil production, basically, from these seeds. I order them from time to time online, and so I put always a little bit of those powders in. I have a pea protein powder, which I put a little bit in. So I make these smoothies kind of more a meal of different things.
Okay. So that keeps you going for some time, right? It makes you feel, right? It makes you full.
Yes. Yeah, that's very good, because if I only do fruits and something like spinach or kale, then it kind of is going through me very too fast, and it doesn't seem to get digested as well as when I add protein and fats.
So you put flax seeds on the smoothie itself?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Oh, so it blends well, huh? It blends well, no problem.
No, that works well. Yeah, it's. I mean, you need a pretty good blender in order for them to get really fine. But yeah, if you have a good blender, then it's no problem.
So avocado, you eat it as raw, or you put it again, you blend it with the fruits. Avocado, how do you eat?
The avocado?
Yeah.
These days I don't eat that much avocado, but I eat them always.
That's right.
Like sometimes I eat them just out of the fruit, or sometimes I put them in a smoothie, but yeah, not that often actually.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks, Arik.
Yeah, of course. Okay, guys, do you have any more questions? Okay, Lauritz, so tell me, so where did you continue next in your on your journey of managing your Crohn disease and getting to the optimal health? So after this stage of intermittent fasting, you said that you tried 1 meal a day, it didn't work really, then you got back. So finally you found yourself in a kind of a flexitarian, you know, so kind of like sometimes you ate more, sometimes you ate less, listening to your body. So what was the next step from there? Because you also performed some prolonged water fasts, I know, and other things. So where did it go next?
Yeah, basically from time to time I would still get some problems that I didn't know where they were coming from. I think now they were related to some food additives that at the time I didn't know yet were not good for me. So when I ate some processed food or I ate out at a restaurant, sometimes I would get a kind of, not very severe, it was all very manageable, so I didn't have to go to the hospital again, but I still felt like, okay, there are symptoms, I have pain and it's not well. So kind of this habit of researching that and learning about it and trying new stuff continued. And I tried prolonged fasting, as you said, 1 week, 10 days for several times. And
just water, like, was it water fast?
Yeah, I did water fasts, but I also did 2 dry fasts where I wasn't eating or drinking anything. So yeah, it was all kind of water or dry fasting, yes.
And dry fasting for how long?
Well, I have to think back, but I think the longest was 4 or 5 days, and the other time was 3 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did those fasts affect your general conditions, your Crohn disease?
Actually, they were all really really great experiences in and of themselves, like learning about the body, how it behaves after longer time without food, noticing the different mental state that you get in. And they all at the time healed what I wanted to heal. So the inflammation went down, I had no more pain. And so in that regard, they were all really good. The dry fasting is definitely more aggressive. So you lose a lot of weight very quickly, but I also found that actually you have much more energy. Kind of the theory is when you don't drink, then the body has to burn more fat in order to generate the water, because you actually need a little bit more water, then you need energy. And so during the dry fast, I always feel very hot. And during the water fast, I always feel very cold. So that's the kind of difference there in the experience. And I also later tried the mostly ketogenic carnivore diet for, I don't know yet, maybe a few months at a time, but not very, very long. So, but I found that with that experiment, really, I'm happy that it's kind of over, because I really focused on meat and animal fat as sources of calories. And I had quickly noticed some issues with my endurance and with my heart. So I had pain in my heart, which was too concerning for me. So I stopped that experiment and went back to my usual way of eating. Kind of, I mean, I'm not eating vegan right now, but mostly plant-based on a day-to-day basis.
And what's for you the difference between vegan and plant-based in your world?
Yeah, so if I identify or would say I'm vegan, then I really don't eat any animal products at all. So, and plant-based for me is I eat maybe 90+ percent of the time I eat meals that are made up of plants. But for me, when for example, I'm invited by my parents or by some other people who are providing the meal, and meat is the only option, and I don't want to, then I don't have anything against eating meat maybe once or twice a month. So yeah, that's for me a plant-based diet, but I'm not identified with that way of eating as I would be if I say I'm a vegan.
So it's not a religion, in other words, like it's not an ideology. Yeah.
Yes, right.
Just
I mean, I see all the arguments behind a plant-based diet, like for health and also for the planetary health. It's obviously not good to eat meat from farm-raised animals that are like
factory
not
farming,
good for the planet.
like factory farming.
Yes. Yes, sorry, that is the term I meant. And so all of the arguments are probably quite valid, but they also are happening, or you're manifesting them as a matter of degree. So every time you eat less meat is as valuable as any other. So whether you go from 99% to 100% doesn't make it any better than going, you know what I mean? Only because you're 100% doesn't make it much better than 95 or 99% reduction of animal products.
Yeah. Lauritz, and tell me, and what was the place of your spiritual practices in your healing, in overcoming your disease? Is there any place for that?
Yeah, I'm 100% convinced that the spiritual practice is very central to how I see and view that condition now. It's because it's also quite related to how you feel inside. If you feel very stressed or depressed, then it is much more difficult to handle such a condition. Especially if you are kind of coming from the background of kind of going to food as a remedy for emotional states. If you go to food as your outlet for negative feelings, and you want to stuff yourself basically to don't feel what you are feeling right now, and you use that as a way to deal with these things, then it's much more difficult, because something like fasting is much more difficult, or reduced food intake as well. So having a way of dealing with difficulties in life through the way of meditation reduces all of these cravings that are not coming from an authentic need of the body. So yeah, it's very essential, I feel.
So tell me now, as a meditation teacher or as a meditation tutor, if a person is new to meditation and they do find themselves eating because just to suppress different emotions, like because of emotional reasons, basically. So what kind of practice, in your opinion, would be the most suitable for them?
Yeah, if they repeatedly find themselves going to food, then the first thing I tell them is, okay, don't try to force yourself to break that habit at first. Just experience what you are doing, what is happening. Just learn by seeing what is happening clearly. So meditation is all about seeing clearly, seeing into your mind clearly, seeing into your behavior clearly. And by doing that and eating mindfully, you see actually how you create your own problem, and how actually food is not the solution that you're searching. Otherwise, you wouldn't go back to it over and over again every time, because it's not a real solution. It just covers it up. And so by eating and watching your behavior mindfully, and then sometimes thinking back of, okay, how did I end up here eating, even though I wasn't maybe hungry? What was the chain of events there? And then gradually becoming so present that you catch yourself when it starts. That's what I usually recommend.
Okay. And in terms of daily practice that would support this kind of awareness, would you recommend anything?
Yes. So there is basically practice can be divided into two aspects. There's the practice you have on the cushion that is very focused and condensed, where you set aside, for example, half an hour or an hour a day and you do a dedicated walking meditation or a dedicated sitting meditation to kind of further your abilities. But then there's also the second part where you are integrating that into your daily experience. You kind of try in everyday experience to let it be guided by that meditative view. And so that's the kind of, you could say, all-day awareness or just mindfulness presence in daily activity. And so both of these things are very important to develop over time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And could you, for example, if a person wants to adopt this cushion meditation, is there any particular thing that they can do in order to improve their relationship with food, or is just a general observation meditation that would apply to everything, including that?
Yeah. So maybe to just simply have an explanation from maybe someone who's completely new to meditation, what it actually is that you're doing is you're using different kinds of objects to train your mind to not get absorbed into certain thought patterns. So you continuously remind yourself to stay aware, mindful, and present, to be aware of what it is that you are doing. So when you sit down in meditation, you could, for example, choose your breath as your object. So you are noticing, for example, the sensations of the air going in and out of your nostrils. So you look for that sensation there, and you continuously just come back over and over again to that sensation. And what you will notice is that there are thought stories happening, things that I'm concerned with in my life right now. They are distracting me. And after a while, you catch yourself. You say, oh, I was distracted. I was absorbed, I lost my mindfulness. I was absorbed into that story that my mind created. And when you recognize that, you bring yourself back to the breath. And the whole practice involves just doing that repeatedly over and over again until kind of you catch the first movements of the mind away from your object, and you're very kind of almost continuously aware of one object. You kind of tame the monkey mind, so to speak, to be able to remain with that object. And you can choose different objects as well, different mental objects. You can create mental objects. You can have the eyes open as well, use visual objects, other body sensations. Mantras work as well, so auditory objects. Really, there is not that much difference in which objects you choose. When you start out, you have different objects have different qualities. So sometimes some people are better suited towards a specific object than another. But yeah, to become more aware of your, maybe if you perceive problems around eating, then to become more aware of that, the general mindfulness training is what will help you do that. So it's not about a specific object.
Okay, interesting. Guys, do you have any more questions at this stage? Okay, probably not.
Hello.
Yes.
I could ask a question.
Hey,
Hi.
Laurie. Hello.
Hi. How you doing? Hi, everybody. So I was watching a video of yours before this, and you were talking about how, emotionally eating, which, I know all of us do, except some of us more than others, I think. But do you now, Cooper, come. First of all, I want to ask you, do you now eat only of hunger, or sometimes you have still emotionally? And also, what does hunger exactly feel and mean to you? Like, how would you define hunger for you?
Yeah. So there are, of course, moments where I'm aware that I have been guided by a certain craving. Usually I catch that quite early on, so it doesn't develop into that full-blown kind of craving that initiates action. So kind of going to the fridge or something like that. So in that sense, emotional eating or the craving, the root cause of that, I still feel. Whether I'm kind of acting on that or not, then is becomes a conscious decision. So it's not really that I find any problem with that kind of eating anymore when I consciously decide to do that. But the interesting thing is when you catch yourself, that develops, it kind of already dissolves itself in that moment. So yeah, there is it's difficult to say. Sometimes I definitely feel that when I'm eating, I recognize afterwards, okay, that was probably a little bit more than was necessary. But it didn't feel in that moment to be driven by any cravings. It's more coming out of the situation of it's social, you're talking and eating. And so it's just, you're going with the flow and you don't really paying that much attention to your body. So you're not recognizing these first signs of, okay, that's enough. So sometimes, yeah, that leads to like not terrible, but just a little bit of overeating. And so, yeah, does that answer your question?
A little bit. I just was wondering, when you feel hungry, what do you feel?
Yeah.
Like what sensation? Because I've heard so many. I just feel like most of us are not even hungry really when we're eating. Like we're just eating because it's time, or it's because your stomach feels empty or growling. And I don't think that's true hunger. But from what I was told, from other professionals years ago, that it's only like a slight, very slight feeling in the throat. So it's nothing to do with the stomach really. So I just wonder, like, some, people when they eat, when they're hungry, what they define their hunger, if, what they feel hungry, what that means for them. So when you're going to eat, you feel like you're hungry, right? Because you said you try to eat just when you're hungry, not when you're not hungry.
Yeah, usually I find that true hunger for me sets in after this kind of 16-hour fast. So when I, for example, 16, 17 hours, I really feel, okay, my body is getting colder. I'm definitely running low on stored glycogen in the liver probably. So there is this real change in how you kind of feel confident without food. It's like, there is now developing this need of, there's definitely some craving for some food. And it's not, sometimes it comes with a stomach sensation, but it's more so, I know it when I'm really hungry, that when I want some only healthy food. So when I'm not really quite hungry, then I usually recognize that do I want to eat a salad? And then the answer is no, then I'm not really hungry. If I want to just eat chocolate, then I know, and nothing else, then I know, actually I'm just craving that.
Yeah, I understand that 100%. Like typically I always ask myself that, and typically it's always, I want to eat because I'm craving this or that, or not really hungry. But I did 40 days on water and I still wasn't hungry after. And like, of course, when you fast, it's different too. But I still didn't have like a true hunger after even that long of a fast. And I've done many others. But so I don't even know what hunger is really for me. But because I've grew up always eating so much that you don't even know when you're hungry really. But also the other question I had real quick is that when you grew up and you had Crohn's and you were young and you got sick, did you ever feel sort of like bad and sorry for yourself, like, oh, why do I have this, and what like, or you just like were like, I'm just gonna solve it and look for solutions, and you weren't too depressed about it? Or were you, because you were young and you had
definitely when I was younger, in my teens, I was definitely kind of depressed almost about that. I was like, why can't I just be as healthy as everyone else and go out and enjoy life and eat the food and be like kind of careless about it and just and be healthy regardless of what I eat. And but it took kind of 5 or 6 years, and so I noticed that shifted quite around the all the other way around, because I actually now, whenever somebody asks me about that, I can say I'm really grateful for that, because of all the things I learned through that, the growth that has happened for me personally through that probably hadn't happened in that way. Who knows what has happened in another universe, in a parallel one, but I'm quite happy the way it turned out, but yeah, not in the beginning.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So basically, you're your own doctor. I mean, go to doctors, you cured yourself, and you are taking care of yourself, and you learned how to deal with this condition. And
yeah, it definitely, it was quite an obsession for many years to spend much of my free time researching everything about nutrition, health, and related topics. I'm by far not a doctor by any means, but yeah, nutrition wise, food wise, I think I have quite a solid foundation of understanding and being able to manage it that way. So yeah, in that regard, I'm my own doctor.
and so have you healed? I mean, have you managed to heal and you're healthy now? I mean, of course, when you go by the diet that you have to go, that you've learned how, so basically you're healed. You've healed yourself.
Yeah, if I pay careful attention to my diet, then I don't observe the issues. Definitely there are foods that I know I don't handle that well. Sometimes I happen to eat them when I'm out eating somewhere else or whatever. I'm traveling where it's more difficult, and then I get some symptoms, but I don't really view myself as being really ill. It's more how maybe an allergy, or it's just how my body reacts to certain foods and chemicals in foods.
Because, you know, you're very sensitive, but, you know, most people, they can eat a lot of toxins until, I mean, their body. So, yeah, so you get a feedback quickly.
Yeah, and I'm actually also thankful for that, because then I'm not eating food for decades that probably hurt everyone down the line with like heart disease or cancer and stuff. And maybe I can avoid that. I don't know, but
Yeah, and then out of the blue, you get cancer or you get Alzheimer. You get out of the blue. You know, people are actually walking with kilos and pounds of toxins inside of them, and the body can tolerate that until there's the straw that all of a sudden, out of the blue, you get this disease. But actually, it's decades. So you're saying somebody who's more sensitive has a quick feedback, so it doesn't store and accumulate all these toxins. And
yes, yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, if you don't pay attention to that, it's probably a very bad thing to have these conditions, because then you suffer a lot. But if you actually go the way of saying, okay, what can I do about it? Let me learn about it, and then maybe it may even turn out to be something positive overall.
You grow from this, you learn from that. And
yeah, yeah, for
thank
sure.
you. Thank you very much for sharing your personal story. It's very inspiring to learn from other people. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you as well.
Arik, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Hey, Lauritz, one question. So when I do longer fasting, I can keep going. You know, I'm not feeling hungry. I can keep going. But what happens is, you know, there is something tells me that the brain needs glucose. I'm running on 30, 40 hours now. Brain needs glucose. So out of just fear, I end up breaking the fast and eat something. How do you handle that situation? Any insights would be helpful.
Yeah, whenever I did some longer fasts, I usually eat a very low carb diet for the days before that. So I eat, for example, just greens and nuts, so salads with olive oil, or just protein-rich foods like tofu or soybeans or nuts. So then the body already over like several days can adjust to that reduction in glucose, and you can switch over to ketogenesis, and then it's easier to transition into fasting.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any more questions, guys? Okay, Lauritz, now I wanted to ask you, because you have experienced lots of diets, and along with that, you were also doing different spiritual practices. So is there a connection between food and the depth of meditation or our spiritual advancement?
Yes, definitely. And the biggest connection I found is just the amount of food that you eat before you have a meditation session. The best meditation is always when you are fasted, at least overnight. So in the morning when you haven't eaten yet, meditation works the best. You're probably least effective in meditation after a big dinner, for example. If like you eat only 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day and dinner is your biggest meal and you want to meditate after that, it's probably not going to work that well. I know that some people who are meditators, they avoid certain types of food, like meat or onions or garlic, for example, are common things that people say are affecting them negatively. I haven't found such effects, so I was meditating perfectly fine on the carnivore diet. I was on the meat-based diet. I was meditating well on more sugar-based diet. So I mean, there is a difference in how your mind feels on a ketogenic diet. If you have no glucose and your brain after a while switches over to burning ketones, then that has a definite shift in how calm you are. Like ketones, kind of when the brain runs on them, it makes you feel more calm. So that can be a benefit to meditation, but it doesn't make a world of a difference. So it's just, if you enjoy that calmness and you are more a generally very kind of anxious, agitated person, then the ketogenic diet might be very good for that. But if you're already kind of normal or relaxed, then it's probably not going to make that much of a difference.
Okay, interesting. And tell me, and if a person wants to implement mindful eating, first of all, what are the benefits of mindful eating? Like, first of all, what is mindful eating in your opinion? What are its benefits, and how to implement those strategies in our lives?
Yeah, mindful eating is basically when you make the sensations of eating the object of your meditation. So one way to do that is to repeat internally in your mind kind of a mantra that reminds you of what it is that you are doing. So you could say, you could just easily label once per second what it is that you are mostly focused on. So when you feel the food in your mouth, you could say chewing, 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 or if it's you are tasting something in the moment, you say tasting. It doesn't really matter that much to be super precise. It's just a reminder of I want to remain with my mind at the object of eating and not do what most people do, eat quickly and then be in your mind actually with other things, with like, oh, what I did yesterday, what I have to do tomorrow. And then just we think that we're eating because in between we get short little bursts of sensations of the taste of the food. So it's like, there was a little bit of tasting, but then there's several seconds of thinking again, and then there's a little bit of tasting again. And so meditating on eating is just remaining mindful of that more continuously. And what you will find through doing that is that attachments to eating can be reduced, while simultaneously actually increasing your enjoyment of eating. So that sounds very paradoxical, but
can you repeat that, Lauritz, please? That's very interesting. But can you repeat that? What you said, I didn't quite get it. Can you repeat that?
Yes. So when you become more mindful of your eating, so you stay with the sensations of chewing, of tasting, of swallowing, and you just, with the full experience of eating, of seeing also the food, you remain mindful of that from second to second. You reduce your attachment to eating. So it's not like you're thinking about it all day and when I can get to my meal, then that's the greatest thing. It will actually reduce that over time. but it will also, in the moment of eating, increase your enjoyment of it. It reduces the attachment because you see that actually it's quite ordinary. The experience is quite ordinary. There are many, many moments of eating that are not that special. So it's just sensations of chewing. You're not tasting actually that much. Then there are short sensations of tasting. Then it's more chewing, then it's swallowing. So it's not that great of a thing. It's not a continuous experience. It's many short moments of different experiences and sensations. And in that way, the mind doesn't reify it that much as a thing. So you recognize that it's just a flow of experience that's always going on, just with different sensations. While actually at the same time, you are experiencing more of your food. So you're missing less while being absorbed in thoughts and then just thinking afterwards, maybe, oh, that was a great meal, but actually you didn't quite experience it that deeply. So yeah, that's paradoxical, but very interesting effects that you can notice when you really practice mindful eating.
Interesting. Guys, do you have any specific questions about mindful eating? It's a very interesting subject. So if any of you guys have anything unclear, or you have any additional questions to get deeper into this subject, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Yeah, so basically you mentioned this, it's called labeling technique, where when you do something and then you label it, like walking, sitting, chewing, etc. Now, I was just thinking, I just want to ask if you have any experience. If a person has cravings for a particular food, and when the craving comes, can they apply this technique by saying like a craving, and then just it might put them maybe in more of the observing mood rather than reacting moods? Do you think it will work?
Yes, it would work, definitely. But with that technique, you would want to break it down further. Like the label craving is too abstract as a thing. So you want to always go down to the level of sensations. So you would then rather, if you notice, oh, I'm craving food, then you would go on and actually want to label more specifically what it is that you experience. Maybe it is a restlessness in the body. There was actually maybe a thought prior to that of some food. So you would label thinking, you would label feeling, or restlessness, or so. Yeah, actually the craving is made up of different things, many different sensations that very quickly flash up into your experience kind of unconsciously, and the mind kind of puts them into this ball of craving, and it sees the going to food as the solution for this ball of kind of unmindful experience that you had. But if you actually break it down and you pull it apart over time with practice, it's like, oh, they were just very harmless sensations. There was a thought popping into my mind of a food, maybe a picture came to my mind, maybe there's some boredom, maybe there's some tiredness. So yeah, craving is really made up of different things.
Yeah, so and then if you are skillful in labeling, you can label those things such as restlessness or picture in the mind probably, or something like that, and then it would put you in the more observing mood rather than just reacting and doing what all those stimuli make you do. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, definitely. And then it's still up to you to decide how you want to react to that. It's like, yeah, you have seen what has going on in your mind, and then it's your free choice to decide if going to food is the right choice. Maybe you come to this conclusion that, oh yeah, actually it's not just craving, maybe it's really time for food, and it's okay to eat. But oftentimes you find actually, yeah, the problem has dissolved, and you can also find other things as a solution if you really know, okay, food is not the healthiest option right now because I'm actually already had enough, or I'm just craving chocolate and I don't want to eat that or whatever.
Okay. Lauritz, and what about exercise during your healing journey? Have you implemented any kinds of specific exercises, or what was the role in general of exercise in your healing? Could you expand on that?
Yeah, I find exercise is really important. Like I do strength training almost continuously for the last 15 years. So I really think that, yeah, I of course had periods of like several weeks, maybe on holidays or so, where I didn't exercise, and I can feel like, okay, my body is not that well without exercise as it is with. And so I do that. I sometimes, mostly in the summer, I ride racing bikes, so I do some cardio training, and I really find it's part of the puzzle to a healthy life. So yeah, I wouldn't neglect that.
And you think in your particular case with the Crohn disease, etc., it helped in the puzzle of your healing? It helped an important role.
Yes, I also find it's quite anti-inflammatory. In the long run, at least, like if you have a too strong of a strength training session and you have a lot of muscle damage, then maybe it can be short-term inflammatory. But in the long term, actually, I find that it's really anti-inflammatory. And so, yeah, it's if you're not really, really sick, then I would exercise. Of course, if you have some virus or so and you are sick, then it's better to rest for a week or do just very light exercise. But outside of those times, I would try to exercise 2 or 3 times a week for at least an hour or so. So yeah, then.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, guys, we are going to wrap it up soon. So not now yet, but soon. So guys, if you have any more questions, you are welcome to ask. Okay, Lauritz, could you please tell us about, okay. Yes, Roberta, you have an additional question?
Yeah, in general, I'm trying to figure out the ideal diet. So you said mainly plant-based, and you were saying low carb. Does that mean no fruits?
Yeah, it would basically mean no fruits, but I'm not eating low carb right now. And I generally wouldn't recommend that. It's quite a restrictive diet. If you have some serious health issue that you want to try this diet, you can try it, but generally I wouldn't say that's the optimal diet. So yeah, but fruits are very healthy. I would still include them. You can play a little bit with your amounts of carbohydrates. Some people do well on a lot of carbohydrates, some people really don't, and so you may tend towards the lower side of carbohydrates and maybe not eat full portions of rice or potatoes and just go with some vegetables and fruits, and so have like lower levels of carbs. That works probably. Yeah,
So
in between those 2 extremes is best for most people.
So you put the fruit and like legume and starches in the same category? Isn't it different, like fresh fruit and rice and potatoes? It's not.
Yeah, the effect is on the body is probably different, but I found for myself something like legumes is a really healthy food. My gut that really likes the fiber in the legumes much more than just fruit fiber. My digestion is much better with some, for example, black beans or chickpeas or lentils or beans, other beans. So that's really I found a really good food for me. So yeah. I don't eat that much rice or potatoes. Yes, I eat them, but not like huge amounts, not every day.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, because it really is tasty and makes you feel full, but they say it's not healthy, so maybe in low proportions from time to time. So
yeah, I mean, it depends always. Like there are, of course, better and less good food. So for your calories, you could choose, okay, what's the healthiest food? But then you can only eat that many greens in a day, and you also need some more calorie dense foods in order not to overfill your stomach and actually not overload your system with too much of one thing. So I found just eating a wide variety of good foods like nuts, seeds, vegetables, fruits, just varying it with the season, with regional availability. It's near to perfect.
And also cooked food, like starches.
Yes, I would definitely include them, depending on where you live. I mean, if you live in a tropical region where you have best foods available year round, and you can probably do that. But here, the fruits in the winter in Germany, I don't want to base my diet on that.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, Lauritz. So now I have, in my opinion, a really, really important question. Like, in your opinion, what is the purpose of food? Because I myself I found myself in different situations in my life, different periods in my life, when I made kind of a religion out of food, and I was constantly thinking about that. Was constantly thinking where it was the right choice, not the right choice. So it would take pretty much like virtually most of my day. And then, but now I'm not doing it anymore. I'm paying much less attention to that. But then what is like? Is it the right mindset, or we eat for something else? Like where would you go with this question?
Yeah, I would say in the end that is to be defined by everyone for himself. As a recommendation, I would say don't make food the center of your life. Like in finding the purpose of life in food itself is probably a little bit limited. I mean, food is a great experience of being human, experiencing the different tastes, learning to cook well and eat well, and learning to feed your body well. That's a beautiful experience we can have as humans. So I wouldn't also neglect that. And yeah, because we are also, I mean, there's research into caloric restriction and the health benefits and longevity benefits of that. But if you feel that this is becoming, that you are restricting yourself so much that, as you said, it becomes the focus of your life, you're constantly hungry and worrying about it, then maybe look for, okay, what can I make my life about other than food? And make food the proper support for that, so that I eat the right amount, so I'm not overly full and I'm not starving, I'm not constantly hungry and thinking about food. So you find the middle way there. And yeah, what it is that you make your life about, that's the great freedom we all have to choose.
Exactly. And that brings us to the question of the questions. How do we find our life goal? How do we do that?
Yeah, that's it's such a long, such a deep topic. In a way, many of my videos on my YouTube channel are about that. In other ways, also not. But yeah, this question is quite interesting. I have found much value for myself in spiritual practices and in the spiritual view of life, in reading about that, going very deep into meditation, but kind of that also dissolves after a while. They say spirituality is a tool that you build in order to dissolve delusions in your life, but also at last the delusion of spirituality itself dissolves itself. So you deconstruct even that whole mindset that you have built and used. So yeah, I mean, for some people, life is about raising kids, having family. For others, it's their business. It's how you do that. Yeah, that's, I think, a great question. Many, or probably way too long to answer here.
I mean, for example, if a person takes your coaching program or comes to you for personal tutoring, do you have certain tools to direct them towards finding their inner calling?
Yes, yeah, of course, there are many tools that you can use to explore that question. Usually it goes hand in hand with meditation. So developing first the introspective ability to become sensitive to those inner voices, inner real authentic desires, and then further looking how they come into being and where they are coming from, if they're really something that you have only picked up from the outside or something that kind of is developing more authentically from your inside. And yeah, it's a combination of meditative techniques, but also more kind of analysis, rational type of thinking, thinking about your options, what you are good at, looking at what you have liked in the past, what you have been good at, and how you can make that useful in life. And there's this kind of approach from, I think it's a Japanese approach, where you go into different areas to explore your calling in life, and you can use techniques like that. And so yeah, there are many helpful things out there for someone to develop that.
Very interesting, very interesting. Lauritz, so tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel, what kind of materials people can find there, and also about your website, what kind of materials people can find there. We will put all the links below this video, and just give us general background about those.
Yeah, thank you for that. My YouTube channel is mostly now about meditation. So I share insights that I have, techniques that work, and things you can explore in meditation, usually for people who are already a little bit familiar with meditation. So I would say not for the pure beginner. I mean, you find also videos about that are helpful when you are starting out. And with that in combination, you can also find on my website different articles and also older videos about nutrition, food, my experiments. I've documented many things there, what I tried. You can read that in much more detail if you like. And also, yeah, as you already mentioned in the beginning, I offer to help people with mostly with the meditative journey. If they have specific questions and they feel kind of stuck with meditation, they feel there's much more potential, but they don't know how to really facilitate that in themselves. Yeah, I have weekly calls usually with people talking about their practice and help them with that. So if anyone wants that, I'm happy to help in that way.
Amazing. So what would be the best way to contact you?
Also just through my website. You can go to lauritzm.com, and on the right side there's you can fill out a form and send me a message.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So we will of course put all the links below. If you're interested, you're welcome to go buy the links and do that. Now, before we wrap it up, finally, guys, do you have any more questions to ask? Okay, Lauritz, so I think we will wrap it up for today, and we might see each other next time. We can prepare another webinar about another subject. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Arik, for having me. Really great to have been here.
Yeah, and maybe Ravi, do you want to say anything? No? Okay.
Thank you. I'm saying thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So thank you so much, Lauritz. Have a nice evening. And
yeah, thank you. Have a nice evening as well, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye, guys. Thank you for coming. Bye-bye.